Powertech Generator here. So I did some troubleshooting already a week and a half, 2 weeks ago maybe. So what we found out was inside, this is inside the control box, that's the cover I was just showing you. This right here is the automatic voltage regulator. But it's got a little fuse holder on there. That fuse was blown. So after looking at the schematic, that comes off of the exciter stator. So there's a fuse there for that, and then there's also another external fuse over here on the side for that same circuit. So this fuse had blown, the external one, a while back when we were going to Pine Mountain, and then now this one blew. So then like I said, I looked at the schematics and I hooked to the exciter stator. I called Powertech just to see if they also would confirm that they thought it was the exciter stator, and they said that most likely that's what it was. I also, while I had it apart, I took apart the motor or the generator main windings, and I tested those with a mega ohm meter, and they tested out fine. So the reading on the exciter stator, which is, this is a new one. So this is the new exciter stator from Powertech. So that's what I'm going to be pulling out and replacing. We'll do an ohm check here. What I was talking about was this, according to their manual, it should be about 89 ohms. It fluctuates a little bit with temperature. I was reading 59 ohms, and he thought that that was enough that it's possibly going bad. I looked also in the end bell of the generator head, and it looked kind of like this was melted. So you could actually see through where this tape was to see the wires, and it looked like it was melted. Plus it had a very strong electrical burn smell, so I suspect that's the issue. So we'll see. Let's hope that. Alright, so we got my trusty fluke meter here. We're going to check the ohm value of this new stator. So I'm just doing an initial check, connecting the two leads together to make sure my leads are good. And I'm going to hook this up here, see what kind of ohm value we're getting there. So that's great. It's about the same, 58. So that's interesting, because that's what we're getting on the other one that's in the generator head right now. But everything is saying that it's this guy. So the other thing we can try to do is, when we get the old one out, is take a reading from the coils to the base. See, obviously this one we're not getting any continuity, so it would read like that if we were getting continuity or some other value. So I'll be curious to see maybe if the other one I didn't find out if you could, not sure if you can measure these. I don't want to do it and damage it, so. Alright, so I was just explaining this to my boys. This is my little crude drawing of what we're doing here. So this, like I said, is a brushless generator. This is the rotor. This is the part rotating, short for rotating. So this is the rotating part that's connected to the engine. And what it has is, it's got an exciter rotor and a main rotor. The exciter rotor connects to the main rotor via windings. this winding, exciter winding, and you have a main rotor winding. This rotates with the generator engine. So this is the exciter stator, so that's stationary. So this is stationary coils, and I'm just representing the single coil, but there's these multiple coils around that, and then the rotator goes inside of this, and we'll show that when we tear apart the generator. So what happens is the automatic voltage regulator manages a current, a voltage through here, and it creates a magnetic field and induces a current into this main winding. That in turn creates a field, magnetic field, and that is picked up by the main stator. Main stator. And then that main stator creates your 120 volts or 120 volt, 240 volt, depending how it's wired. But we'll just say 120 volts for simplification here. So now that is connected, my little sort of dotted lines come back over to the AVR, the automatic voltage regulator. So what happens is, if this voltage starts to sag, let's say it goes to 110 volts, what happens is this automatic voltage regulator sees that drop. It creates a larger current through here, which creates a larger field here, which is picked up and transferred to this field. So then it brings the 120 or the 110 volts back up to 120 volts. Same thing if it goes too high, it brings it back down. So that's if you have loads coming on and off the generator, this actually automatically adjusts that load by changing this field induced onto the main winding. So that's how a brushless generator can generate electricity without the two rotor or stator touching. So what happens if you have a brushed generator is the operation is similar, but what happens is the AVR actually goes to these brushes, and this is the brush and this is a slip ring, they call it. So there'll be two slip rings on the rotor. This again is a rotor being driven by the engine, and those slip rings will pick up that field from the voltage regulator and then go onto the main winding and then generate power on the main stator. Again, same principle. If the voltage goes too high, the voltage regulator adjusts this. So it's the same operation. The only difference is you have a physical connection to these slip rings, and obviously this is a wear point. That's why they went to brushless generators, so you no longer have to worry about a wear item. So of course we're replacing this exciter stator today because probably just it's a lower quality part and it has burned itself out. We're hoping to see that when we pull it out of there, and that's going to hopefully be our issue. We replace this, we create a field, we generate a voltage, and we're back in business generating power. Alright, we're up under the bus in the generator compartment. I've got the generator slid out so I can get to the back end of the generator head. I know some of the newer Wanderlodges have this reversed with the generator head toward the front of the bus. This one was installed later on. This is an 84 Wanderlodge, so it would have had a Perkins Kohler generator. Somebody replaced this. This is a 2013 model Powertech 12 kW generator with a brushless head. So we're going to pull this end cap off is the idea. Get me one of those little tubs to put the screws in.
Do you want the one you already have out or a new one?
New one. Oh no. Why do they hate me? I don't think this is fitting very well. I should have sprayed it with some Superzilla or something. Get me a hammer. Give me the Superzilla. Although I don't know if I can really get it into anything. I don't know what size bolts these are. It's a fine thread. Shit. Of course, a simple project turns into a freaking pain in the butt. Spinning. That's awesome. I think I got this to move. Chisel. Chewed up the head of that, which they're messed up anyways. We're going to see. I'll have to go get some hardware. So an air chisel would be perfect right about now, but I don't have one, so. Trying to make a notch in here, and then I'm using that notch to spin the nut, or bolt, I'm sorry. Trying to make a good indentation on there to catch it, and then there it goes. It starts spinning. So now we'll see if we can wedge something in there to get it out. It is. So I'll have to take those to the hardware store and get some replacements. Now I think you're supposed to use that same bolt to push this out. I really don't like these hex heads. trick. It's bottomed out there. Probably gonna have to just get a the rest of the way off. Yeah. Just wiggle it a little bit. So it appears that the stator or exciter stator might be attached to this headpiece, so we might have to cut the wires so we can get them fed down through here. I'll have to see. You have my flashlight? Yep, so we got that out. We just got to get those wires trimmed off so we can get it out of there. The flashlight should be red and white wire. Get me my wire cutters, please. That should be one of them. That goes to the fuse. And the other one should go right too, I think. Thinking it's going to be. Oops. Try that. Let's see now. That's the one right there. Okay. Can you see up there? I don't. I'm not. Okay, yeah. So I got one here that's pulling through, and then the other one you can just pull them. The other one was going right to the fuse, the external fuse that we looked at earlier. So I'm hoping I can just pull this through. Wire cutters. That one will pull it out. So the red one, we might need to cut that end off of it to get it out of there. Oops. Jeez. Ow, funny bone. Jeez. It's easy on ourselves. Cut this end off. All right. So, I don't know if you can see that one, just this camera. So that's the exciter stator bolted to the end housing. So it looks like it's got a couple, 2-3 mounts. So we'll take this out, change it out with the new one. It's looking pretty crusty. I'm not sure. It does smell kind of burnt. A couple of these windings, if you look at that right there, looks pretty like it's melted. Oh yeah, look right there. Look a little closer at this so we get it out. I'm gonna get this end bearing off too. Sounds a little crusty. I got a new one of those, so. All right, I'm gonna vacuum some of this stuff out of the inside of this thing. Go ahead. I'm getting them set up with the blowgun too, and I'm going to blow this out, try to get some of the dirt out of here. Hope you can see that. It's pretty dirty in there. Put it off here. It's not hugely terrible. I'm also going to pull this end bearing off. I got my puller on here. Now you normally wouldn't put a puller on a bearing like this, but since this bearing is, we're going to replace this bearing, you can hear it. It's pretty nasty sounding. Yeah, because it would normally damage the bearing. But if you wanted to save this bearing, you wouldn't want to use a puller like this on it. You need to get behind it and pull it actually on the inner diameter. But like I said, since I'm not saving this bearing, we're just going to use a puller on it. We have that bearing. So this is the new bearing, hopefully. Looks right. So I just want to double check that before I pull this old one off. So it's if you can see that, 6206-2RS, and that's the number I got off of the back of here. So I'm going to give this a shot. See if we can pull that bearing off. You have to go with a shorter throw on this thing. There it goes. It's going. Alright, so I just shortened up my puller a little bit so I could get this bearing the rest of the way off of here. Right, there it is. So that's the old bearing. You can hear it. Pretty chunky. Find out what the new ones sounds like. stiff. But yeah, no noise. Nice good sound. We want to mount this with the number out so people can see it in the future. What I'll do is just start it a little bit with a couple taps of the hammer. Flush. Now we use the outer ring of the socket to kind of drive it down over it. And that's about where it sits right there. Give it a couple taps, make sure it's seated. Yep. And that's it. So you want to make sure you're driving by this inner race. You don't want to ever load this outer race. It's not really designed for a lot of load laterally, I guess you could say. So you want to make sure you're driving it by this inner race, you know. That's why I use a socket. I'm sure there's a tool for it. Don't have it, so socket works. Alrighty, so we got that on there. Now we'll take this, we'll get out from under here, take this exciter stator out and put it on the workbench so we can get that fixed, and then we'll have to run and get new bolts, or see if I've got bolts to, I don't think I'm going to have bolts to put that end cap back on. Replace these guys. Alright, just some investigation just because I had to, but it looks pretty crusty in there, and then if you smell it, it's definitely burned electrical smell. As you can see, those little windings are all pretty well melted together. I think that's the cause right there. So let's hope for the best. We'll replace this and put the new one in, and I'm going to put a little penetrating spray on these bolts. Super Zilla. It's the new spray I'm trying out. Thank you to Lefty on the Wanderlodge forum for putting me onto that. There it is. Old one. This has got to line up. Those holes. Alright, just putting some anti-seize on these bolts. Slip these wires up in here. See if I can get somebody to pull them from up top. I need you to pull up on that one. Put this in. Pull it in, pull them up. Gently, gently. Pull one at a time. That's good. Where's that plumber's grease? So there's an O-ring in here. I'm going to put a little bit of plumber's grease on it to lubricate it. Check in here, make sure those wires aren't pinched. Alright, so I'm sure if you can see over here, the wires come up through from the generator head. So that's the red and the white. So the white's going to make up to this butt splice here that goes to the voltage regulator, and then this one goes over to this, that's the external fuse. So yeah, this guy here, which I got a new one of those as well. So we're gonna just make up those connections, and then we'll do a test here, see how this works. Alright, so there's the new 5 amp fuse and the little clip that goes down in here, and the voltage regulator. Got that snapped in. And then this one I only had a 2 amp fuse. It's supposed to be a 6 amp. I couldn't get a 6 amp today, but we got a 5 amp, so I'm going to go with the 5 amp. Alright, so we got this fuel line disconnected from the Regulator filter up under here. That goes to the generator. This fuel line's really stiff, so we're going to make a new one. And up here, we've disconnected it right here from the fuel block here. So we're going to pull this fuel line out and replace it. Alright, so I wanted to do a follow-up. So we've replaced this generator stator, exciter stator on this generator, and I'm still having trouble. So I took some measurements, and one of the measurements I took was the DC excitation to the exciter, and it's supposed to be 120 volts DC, and it's reading 200 volts DC. So I also noticed the reason I checked that was because I noticed that the voltage was high. It's 170 volts the generator's putting out right now. So I believe now that because that voltage is high, that's what was causing it to blow the fuse. I believe that the automatic voltage regulator has taken a crap. So I'm going to order a new automatic voltage regulator, and hopefully that fixes the issue. We also did some work on, I pulled the fuel line off going to the generator, coming from this Regulator filter. You can see the little, I got little caps on the line, so I'm going to replace that fuel line. And I had an issue with the connectors on there that they didn't want to come apart, so that's these guys here. I couldn't get the hose out of them. They've been baked in there so long, so I had to order a couple new hose ends for that. So we're on hold until we get those hoses, and we get also those hose ends, and then also the, I guess, a new voltage regulator. Let's hope that is the fix. I think that's what it is, but I hope I have not damaged the new exciter stator, because it smelled like it was burning again. So we'll find out. All right, until next time, thanks for watching.